Welcome to Life Story. Today we're cracking open the book on Wilhelm Grimm, and his life was no fairy tale, let me tell you. Before we start though, can you do me a solid and give this video a like and subscribe to the channel so it can continue to grow? Also, if you're a fan of Brothers Grimm fairy tales, make sure to stick around to the end. Wilhelm Karl Grimm, born February 24, 1786 in Hanau, Germany, was one half of the legendary Brothers Grimm, while his older brother Jacob was the rigorous linguist and scholar. Wilhelm was the literary soul of the duo. He was the man responsible for transforming raw, often harsh folk oral traditions into the polished, evocative, and enduring fairy tales that have shaped the global imagination for over 2 centuries. The Grimm brothers' childhood was marked by a sudden shift from comfort to hardship. Their father, a lawyer, died when Wilhelm was only 10, leaving the family in financial straits. Despite these challenges, Wilhelm and Jacob remained inseparable. They both attended the University of Marburg, where they studied law to follow in their father's footsteps. However, it was at Marburg that they met Professor Friedrich von Sevigny, who ignited their passion for history and philology, the study of language in historical sources. This academic pivot shifted their focus from the courtroom to the library, and eventually to the hearths of German peasants. In the early 19th century, Germany was a collection of fragmented states under the shadow of Napoleonic occupation. The Grimms, driven by a romantic nationalism, sought to preserve a pure German identity by collecting traditional folk stories before they were lost to modernization. While Jacob focused on the scientific and grammatical structure of the language, Wilhelm took the lead on the editorial side of their most famous work, Kinder- und Hausmärchen, Children's and Household Tales, first published in 1812. Wilhelm's contribution was transformative. The initial stories they collected from sources like Dorothea Wieman and the Hassenpflug family were often brief, repetitive, and occasionally quite violent or sexually explicit. Wilhelm spent decades refining these tales. He enhanced the narrative to add descriptive detail and psychological depth to characters. He standardized the tone, creating the fairy tale style, marked by simplicity, rhythmic repetition, and a sense of timeliness. And he adapted them for children. Recognizing the growing market for children's literature, he gradually removed adult themes, though he famously retained many of the darker elements as moral lessons. It's largely due to Wilhelm's poetic sensibilities that stories like Cinderella, Hansel and Gretel, and Snow White possess the lyrical quality we recognize today. Beyond fairy tales, Wilhelm was a formidable scholar. He contributed significantly to the Deutsches Wörterbuch, the definitive German dictionary, and published works on medieval literature and German runes. His life was not without political drama. In 1837, while serving as a professor at the University of Göttingen, Wilhelm and Jacob were part of the Göttingen Seven, a group of professors who protested when King Ernest Augustus I abolished the state's constitution. The brothers were dismissed from their posts and forced into exile, eventually finding a stable home and patronage in Berlin under King Frederick William IV. Unlike the lifelong bachelor Jacob, Wilhelm married Henriette Dorothea or Dorchen Wild in 1825. Dorchen had been one of their primary sources for stories, making their union a literal bridge between folk tradition and scholarly preservation. They had 4 children together, and the Grimm household remained a collaborative, intellectual hub. Wilhelm Grimm died on December 16, 1859. While he and his brother viewed their work as a scientific preservation of German culture, they inadvertently created a universal language of storytelling. Wilhelm's ability to find the human heart within the folk tradition ensured that these stories didn't just survive in dusty archives, but lived on in the hearts of children and adults worldwide. Thanks for watching. If you're like me and love stories, particularly fairy tales, why don't you check out another channel of mine featuring audiobooks, including a good number of the original Grimm's fairy tales. It's called Stop, Book, and Listen, and the link for it is on the screen right now.